You know, we're talking thousands, and we have no idea who they are. And that kind of set the stage for the work that was ahead of us for the next few weeks.
Turning on the television 20 years ago would have looked something like this.
We have plenty of gas, and we'll continue to have plenty of gas.
I must tell you, I just await in dreaded anticipation of how many innocent lives have been lost here today.
But it was also a scene of togetherness. Maybe you donated blood.
It could have happened here too, so, and if it happened to me, I'd want someone to do the same for me.
Or went to church.
We're probably more united as a world today than we've been in a long time.
In Cedar Rapids,
KWWL Flight 356 with service to St. Louis. That aircraft has been canceled.
departure times came and went, stranding passengers for days. Some, though, were already in the air, like Cedar Rapids funeral director Peter Tian.
It was a very eerie feeling. Now, I'm a pilot, and I'm used to hearing all this radio chatter. As we were flying across the country, there was no radio chatter. There was nobody talking on the radios. And every time we went a certain distance in different sectors, a military fighter would intercept our airplane, loaded to shoot us down.
Flown directly from Cedar Rapids to an empty JFK airport in New York, Tian's work began in a world just starting to grapple with what had happened.
Never imagined sitting down and trying to figure out how many thousands of people had died and how we were going to identify them, because nobody knew who was in those buildings. Nobody knew who were on the trains in the underground that was buried now.
That initial estimate, 8,000 to 10,000 dead. His work was with the Red Cross, helping emergency management staff, the first responders, and the families clutching photos of those who never came home.
A man came up and he said, you're with the Red Cross. Can you help us? And I said, sure. And he took me over to his wife, and his wife couldn't sleep. She could hardly talk, but she couldn't sleep, and this is several days after the event. And he says, can you help her? She can't sleep, she can't close her eyes. Because on that day, they were at ground zero and watched people fall like raindrops from the sky. And every time she closed her eyes, she saw them falling.
For more than 5 weeks, he stayed out there with the Red Cross and with the FBI, getting scores of follow-up terror threats. He was unsure that he would ever come home.
We had just been put on alert for another big attack the next day. And so I called two friends who had worked the Pentagon operation, and they were coming up the next day to visit our site. And I called them up and I said, I don't want you to come tomorrow. I said, they just said, we're going to have another attack and I think I'm going to die, and I don't want you to die with me.
They would come anyway, and that attack would never materialize. But it was the constant fear they lived with in their time on the ground. The day would finally arrive that he would come home, but the memories would last forever.
There are a lot of people who still aren't identified, and people are going to get these phone calls. And so it is still a need for us as a country to pull together to help each other.
Collin, Dorsey, News 7, KWWL.